Okay, great. Welcome back to everyone. And so, as I said earlier on, this final session is actually reporting on a CEF-funded project, the principal project. And Jane Dunn, who's the project coordinator, is going to give us the first talk to explain the project in general. And then we're going to have a couple of other use case examples. The second two talks will be in Irish. So I'll remind you that if you don't already have it, please download the Interactio app onto your phone. It's much easier to access than the web browser. If you do access the interpreting service on your web browser, please remember to mute the original speaker on Zoom, so you don't have two voices in your ear. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Jane. Thanks, Jane.
I'll unmute.
We've all done it.
So can you see my screen there now, everybody?
Oh, good, great, thanks.
Yeah,
perfect.
Okay, so thanks for that, Teresa. So yeah, this session is, we're going to look at language technology in the public sector, and we're going to use this particular project principle as an example, because there are actually very good cases of where we've been working with different government departments and public administration, where they have been using and are using language technology. So principle. So during this particular presentation, I'm going to give an overview of the project to start off, then the use case analysis. So what we were looking at the start of the project, how we prepared the data and what type of data we were looking for as part of this project, how the MT systems, so the machine translation systems, were developed, how we evaluated these machine translation systems, and then the work that's remaining on the project. So principle is, as Teresa said, it's a CEF project, so it's an EU funded project by CEF, and it's a 5-member consortium. So DCU is the project coordinator with Professor Andy Way, who unfortunately can't be here today, as the principal investigator. And DCU is working with 4 other partners in National Library of Norway, the University of Iceland, Iconic Translation Machines, now known as Language Weaver, and the University of Zagreb in Croatia. We are working with these because in general, CEF projects are funded, they have to be across more than one country. I think it's a minimum of 2. So, and similarly in the ELRC project that Teresa and Helen discussed, the National Relay Station was actually set up in 3 other countries as well. So it's a 2-year, principle is a 2-year Connecting Europe facility. It started in September 2019, so we've just over 2 months left on the project. So it's a good time to be showcasing the work that we've done over the last nearly 2 years. And the focus is on this particular project was on data collection to improve translation technology and quality on the DSI, so the digital service infrastructures of e-justice and e-procurement. And yeah, this is our, if you can follow us on Twitter, have a look at our if you want more details, on our website, principalproject.eu. So principle actually stands for something. It's providing resources for Irish, Norwegian, Croatian, Icelandic, for the purposes of language engineering. So this is actually has a meaning principle. And the goal then was to identify, collect and process high quality language resources, or LRs as we call them, across the 4 languages. And it might seem like maybe a strange pairing or coming together, but these specific languages were actually called out in the call that we went for, because they were identified by the Commission as being particularly low resource. So as Vilmantas was discussing earlier, the amount of data that's needed for a well-functioning MT system, they identify these 4 languages as being particularly low in resources. So the idea was that we would identify what we're calling high quality language resources. And we would do this by creating MT systems, machine translation systems from the resources. And if we created a good MT system, that in a way validated that the quality of the data was good. Okay. So in order to do this, we went to early adopters in the 4 countries. So early adopters, and I'll explain it now in a minute, but these were different data providers that we knew in each of the countries. We got the data from them, and if then they were interested, we provided them with a machine translation system, bespoke. So you've heard a little bit in the previous presentations about in domain. So because we're creating the MT engines on the data from these early adopters, then the data we found that the MT systems were better performing because it was all in domain. And then the final part is that the data that's deemed to be of high quality is then uploaded to the ELRC share, as you've heard about already, and with the main purpose to improve e-translation engines. Okay, so the use case analysis, there was 2 use case scenarios identified at the start of the project by the 5-member consortium. We had the data contributors. So these were public and government bodies and industry partners. You'll see we have a case in Croatia, who aligned with the specific domains of e-justice and e-procurement. Okay, so we sort of targeted specific partners who we knew would have data in these particular domains. And then early adopters, you heard me discuss earlier. Early adopters were then this sort of a subset of these data contributors who were interested in actually having an MT system themselves and using it themselves. So in most cases, the early adopters were data contributors who already were using translation memory tools. So we're using technology to do their translations, so they could see the interest and the benefit. In order to gain information on the type of data that was out there, we had to come up with a questionnaire. Can you see that? Yeah. A questionnaire to sort of gain information on the types of processes that organizations were using, how much data they had, you know, how often they did translations, did they outsource, did they do them in-house? And then additionally, the types of language resources that were available. So the formats you would have heard Helen talk about, you know, Word, PDF, TMX files, and then how much of them there were there and the quality as well of them. Okay, so the consortium then, we had agreed, like before we handed over data to Iconic Translation Machines, because they were the organization who were creating the machine translation systems. We had to decide on what we were going to do with the data before handing it over. So we agreed that they would require language identification. These were the acceptable file formats that we would work in. So text files, Word files, TMX files, databases, PDFs, and Excel files. We would look for parallel corpora and monolingual corpora. So when I say that, parallel corpora would be what you saw Phil Mantis show. So English to Irish, one file English, one file Irish, or vice versa. But also then we would take monolingual corpora. So we would take Irish data as well. And sentence had to be aligned. So we had to make sure that one sentence matched up to another. Again, similar, you would have seen something in Bill Mantis's presentation. And where that wasn't the case, we had to make sure that they were aligned correctly. So that did take some work in some cases where we had to align them correctly to make sure that one translation corresponded to another in the corresponding file. Okay. So at this point, once we had the data cleaned, it was handed over to Iconic. But in the meantime, Iconic were looking at the data that was available on ELRC Share. So there is data, there was data previous to the work we have done, and Teresa would have been working on this from an Irish point of view since 2015, up on the ELRC share. So Iconic looked at this and did a quality check on it, and they actually, liaised with ourselves as well, looking at the data. And they used the data that they found on the ELRC share to create the first baseline engines. So following them putting the data through their pipelines, they were able to come up with this amount of data for each of the languages. Now, when you compare, when you having watched Bill Mantis's presentation earlier, when he talks about 10 million, you see now where we are with these languages. Okay, and he's saying that you need at least 10 million, 20 million to get a really good engine. So phase one, and then the early adopters that we managed to get on board across the 4 countries in phase one. So phase one started August, because we had, the first 6 months we had to prepare the data, talk to the early adopters, but the actual engines were created from August to October last year, 2020. And during this phase, the National University of Ireland in Galway from Ireland came on board. Cyclopeia, who are a translation company in Croatia, the Icelandic Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Iceland, and in Norway we had Standards Norway, who work on the ISO and all those type of qualifications, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So as you can see, they were all more or less in the domain of what we were looking for. And if we looked specifically for some of them, there was more general data, say for an NUIG, but we asked for specific e-procurement data. And then in phase, and during phase one, then we would have evaluated the engines once they were handed over to the early adopters at that stage. Happened around November, December time last year. And phase two, then we brought on another 5 early adopters. So we brought 5 in the first phase and 5 in the second. And you would see here, we have another 2 from Ireland. So the Rannog Astrachan, who do the translations of the Parliament in Ireland for those, or Dáil as we call it in Ireland here. First na Gaeilge, Cyclopeia, they received a second engine because they were working with e-health, and we thought that in the current climate that having additional health data on the ELRC share would be really beneficial. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Croatia as well, and then in Iceland, Icelandic Standards, similarly to Norway, Standards Norway, and the Icelandic Meteorology Office. This one was a slight departure, but we felt that part of this project as well was promoting language technology. And we felt that this would be a really good way in Iceland. Our colleagues in Iceland thought that it would be a really good way to do this in Iceland, because it would create a really robust engine, and would be, because translations of weather forecasts, it's the oldest type of machine translation systems, and would be really powerful and would be a really good use case. DCU then were brought in as well as one of our, apart from coordinating it, we were also evaluating the system. So we were like an independent evaluator in a sense. We prepared an agreed protocol for how we would evaluate them. We worked with the early adopters, preparing test sets. So we got test sets and put them through the engines, and then reviewed and asked the early adopter translators, usually working in the early adopters, to review the output. And we looked at the type of options, whether automatic, and I think Roisin's going to talk about that, the blue scores. It's a way you look at translations. And also human evaluation, so looking at maybe how much post-editing was needed at the end of the once they got the MT output. And we agreed on them with the early adopters. Okay. And the next part, so once we did that evaluation, we did 2 evaluations, one on phase 1 and one on phase 2. One of the things we did note was that the automatic evaluation, according with the blue scores, and Roisin will tell you more, the iconic engines did outperform Google Translate, Microsoft Translator, and eTranslation, and really that's to be expected because they were all created using data from the actual early adopters themselves, so it would be expected. The human evaluation then, once we did that, so we were working directly with the translators on the output, there was a high number of fluent and adequate translations noted. Also, one thing that came out was it was considered to be faster if you worked with output from a machine translation system rather than starting from scratch. So I think this was touched on earlier as well. Teresa had sort of alluded to it. And also the results of both combining the human and the automatic evaluation, it showed how, you know, improved how good the quality was of the MT systems, and then also indirectly validated the quality of the data, because, you know, a system is only as good as the data that you put into it. Looking at from the Irish point of view, the TMX files, so this is back to the type of files that we collected from the different early adopters. So we got some TMX files from the translators working with the early adopters. So for example, on Rannog on Astrachan, they provided us with some TMX files. We also got TMX files from some of the language service providers. So this is from the Department of Justice. We got the TMX files. Helen had said, you know, that they are the property. Once you do get some translations, they're your property. Website scraping as well. So Orla would have been involved in this. I'm sure our colleagues from working in the Rannog and Astrachan will recognise this Octana website, where the acts are up there in English and Irish, and we would have scraped extracted the data from them. Also PDFs of acts that have been recently uploaded to the Oireachtas website, which aren't on the Octana website, and then Word documents that have been uploaded to the NRS. The case here would be from NUIG. Looking at the data, then you can see, you know, some really large amounts of data that we've been able to gather. Helen had just shown you there about 25,000 translation units, sentence pairs translation units that we had been able to gather with the ELRC project. We're getting closer here, you can see, but there is more work to do, most definitely. And this is only really in two specific domains. So the more general data we get, the better. And finally, then, what do we have to do in the rest of the project? We have to deploy the MT engine. So the added bonus then is, I said, that the early adopters, they have bespoke machine translation systems within their departments. So, and it's very easy, as in they can plug the iconic systems into their translation memory tools, and they are able to use them until the end of the project in August this year, and see, you know, what they think. How have they found the experience of using machine translation? Because for all of them, it was a new concept. We are also validating the data and uploading it to the ELRC share. So that 700 plus K of translation units that you've just seen there are currently being uploaded onto the ELRC share. And you can actually look at it, as Teresa said, anyone can access the ELRC share, and you can actually look at the funding projects and you can see the data that we've been able to upload to it. And then finally, the remaining workshops. So our colleagues in Iceland and Norway have run workshops like this. Our colleagues in Croatia are running one on the 1st of July, and we're doing this today to just to show what we've been doing, to make people aware of what can be done if you get this all important data, yeah, that what's out there. Okay, so thanks very much. I'm going to pass you over now to Micheál O'Main Ruig from Forest na Gaeilge. So one of our early adopters, stop the share. One of our early adopters working on the principal project with us. Micheál, are you there?
I am.
You are. It's hard to see on this. That's great. Micheál, I will hand over to yourself. Can you share your screen? Sorry, are there any questions? Sorry, before I go ahead. No. We'll have some time at the end anyway, if anyone would like to ask any questions. Okay, I'll hand over to you then, Micheál. Thanks a million. Oh,
sorry, Jane, sorry, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
And I was typing away there, but I thought it'd be just easier to ask. A lot of the information here is absolutely wonderful, and I'm a returning participant, so I'm always learning something new, okay? But if you look at maybe a new Irish language officer or an Irish language development officer, or now we have like at least 26 plus Irish language planning officers in Gaeltacht, and that'll be expanded again. Machine translation to them is probably not something that they talk about every day, okay? And I think that maybe we need to look at looking at tools and resources for those people that are working on the ground, and how we can contribute to making this more accessible to them. And I just think that's probably something that maybe we can look at. And like, I mean, there's a great organization that coming up for Gaeilge, but I do think maybe looking at maybe the next level down, if you know what I mean, because maybe not all of those people that work in that sector use Trados or machine translation. They might do it in-house. They might not be storing their data the way that would be useful for you and for Europe to use the data. And I think it probably needs to come down to a different level, I think. And they are aware of it, and there is people who are maybe anxious. I thought it was interesting what Helen said there about maybe their manager isn't allowing them to do it. Maybe there is a bit there as well that they're not completely and utterly comfortable sharing their data because they're not 100% sure have I got the FOD in the right place. And that's something I think that we need to work at as well. So if you have any suggestions, great. But I do think there's a body of work done just from talking to them and being involved in different organizations.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think as well, like as Phil Mantis said this morning, like e-translation is available, and we just need to get the word out there that it is accessible and it can be, you know, accessed online. So, and you can upload, I've used it, I've uploaded a Word document and you get a Word document back with all the formatting, you know, the same. So definitely there's an element of outreach there. As Teresa said, we have received funding from the Department of the Gaeltacht within the wider department for funding for the next year and a half to run the SAN, or the National Relay Station. And part of that will be outreach and exactly what you're saying there, getting out to those networks, getting out to the grassroots and talking to people on the ground and understanding what the issues may be, and you know, guiding them through it as well. And you know, if something's in the public, you know, sphere, then that's okay to share, you know, so that might give people some more comfort as well. But yeah, definitely, you know, we are looking at that, Siobhan, for the next year and a half. Definitely agree. I'll be in touch.
I might chime in quickly, sorry, Jane. Siobhan, we extended an invitation to all of those people of the above that you mentioned. We can only do what we can. If people turn up, they don't, then we, you know, it's really hard to get the message out there. But we'd ask people to share on this information they've learned today to anyone else who they feel who would benefit from it. But it's a good conversation, and let's continue it in the Q&A session. So if anyone else listening has an opinion on it, we'd be happy to open this up into a bigger chat at the end. Thanks.
And just le Carla sin Siobhan, ní bheith mo kaint ho technol beidir sa bhína cín rive, bheith sé déirí runibug níos máir an timpachta agus an rud ar bhfuil tú kaintan sin, so beidir go dúir sé cinál túspointe tíobh le bheith meabhrú ar an tionscail seo. So gur má go bh cháirde, is mise Micheál Ó Maelróney, banistóir technolaíochta le Foras na Gaeilge, just cura an gasta díobh siúd ná bhfuil nar chula faoi Foras na Gaeilge hana hain. Bunaíodh Foras na Gaeilge faoi comhaoin tú ina chéasta, néidir nach chuné, Tá first na gailge ag tuairt ara do corchan cín na gailge ó thuaidh agus ó yes mar forras tras teoran. Go hangas de ceir sprí le gailge corchan cín, an crí a raham héinear ná churmid gailge chun cín sa phobal, trí muoinú, trí teanga é héin a corchan cín, bolscracht, margaíocht dhéana ag levéile stáit, trí cuasaí idechas, trí ró cóirlach a ghlacha leis na ranógaí stáit, agus an sin bí mé a chur an teanga é héin chun cín, trí na mánaí takeíocht a fáilteachán atá going, trí termólaíocht a chur chun cín, trí folklóireacht a chur chun cín. So sin cinál spléicha an gasta cadaí dhéanaan an oris. So wathe leis an caint seo ar go hangasta san oris é héin tá agurtháirí, folklóirithe, fili, scríbhneoirí, termólathe. Chomála sin bí an forras na gailge ag brunna an séile agus ag déanamh riar ar an séile creadúnathe de astrathóirí agus agurtháirí. So tá annach chuid ceangal a going le cuasaí teanga, tá annach chuid sanolalas a going sa teach sanolathe ag levéil éagsúla teanga, agus chomála sin tá míad gníomhach san airnáil é héin trín séile a bhrunna. Ach sin an picture mór ar bhaith leis an píosa cainte seo tá a goldíirú ar astrachan inmheánach san oras agus na riachtanas inmheánacha atá going agus chuna sa líonn siad leis an tionscadal seo agus an obair rinneamid leis an tionscadal seo. So go hangasta an sin tá liste den riachtanas astrachan atá ar an oras ó lá go lá. So tá arstuff díirithe ar na páirtithe lasfra agsúla atá going na spruch pobal. Spruch pobal ná airnáil na gaige é héin, lucht acadúil, cólachtaí stáit eile, agus an sin an pobal níos leithne. So bí míad ag astrú sa dáseo ó gaige go béla agus ó béla go gaige. Agus tá agsúlachtaí mór sa cinál teanga. Mar tá míad a díriú ar daoine ar bheag an gaige agus an sin ar daoine ar bheag an gaige grúpaí pobal, daoine atá ag forbairt féiltí beaga agus i ggéirí go mé an gaige mar chuid go. Tá míad a díriú ar daoine ar bheag an gaige le feachtas margaíochta agus scéimní agsúla. Ach i gnéim céine, tá míad a díriú ar sláthróirí idechais, ar fáiltethirí, ar airnáil na gaige. So tá míad a díriú ar na daoine is fear gaige sa tír agus an sin na daoine tá míad a géirí mala isteach, so tá agsúlacht suntasach teanga an sin. Tá an oireann a lug I bhforas na gaige ag cruthú ábhar sa dátheanga go léithúil. So ag daile leis na páirte lasfra agsúla, tá gach duine san eagraíocht ag astrú ag pointí agsúla. Agus just rud beag a bhí me géirí mearú ná an ceisteo a bhíons ann faoi an ceiste chur faoi leganach go gaige. So bíon oring an irid astrachána dhéana mar ar nóí caiigh forras na gaige an stufa chur fáil in gaige agus chaimid é chur fáil in méle le díú ar an spruch pobal dearbhú nach bhfuil aine fág chamach a going fág ar lár. Agus ó héad na legan go gaige de, caiimid í ceiste chur a gcónaí, ní hamháin an bhfuil legan gaige de rud ach an bhfuil den seirbhí sé ar fáil in gaige nó tá míad a pléile sa láthróir nó an bhfuil cratlach ar fáil in gaige, má tá míad a forbairt síomh WordPress as forbairt síomh chóras eile, chur míad an ceiste gcónaí an bhfuil legan gaige an féidling seo I dhéanamh in gaige. So just tá táhacht leis an cheist sin I ggóhéic an tionscadal seo, mar braham go bhfuil daoine a pléile an tionscadal seo ag chur an ceist go réalta agus ag chur na thuirlisí ar fáil doing le freastal ar an ceist cáil an legan gaige an bhfuil legan gaige ann. So go gasta tá fuair an astrachan lá an aimsire a going san eagraíocht atá ag gol amón astrachan don ábhar a luath a hana. The war úlach agus méid na haibre bíon ar first na gaige astrothirí ón liste creadúnathe astrothirí osú ó am go chéile ar thionscadal agsúla. So na hurlishi astrachan a Tommy the Gooside sonorus Tommy the buint last as memo cute and quidis mo shin an astrachan Neil en chush an chush leis nach kleine an astrachan I tain playing me demach na hurlishi atar fall agus our pre-astrahar Seamus McCun the ilunte ege memo Q vi kleine ege dro memo Q rinne se cost larger is ordish éfachtach agus tá sé gaibrúach goma doing tá trados lagan de trados a going coma just mar over hostal like me mid ólach na laganacha agus na kinalacha eigsúle dun chlár Tommy there are three lag the memo Q egen pointe shot agus just it's in a taggart the Rud Siobhan and Shin or Kesh Siobhan ta an lagging new a shot and lagging memo Q cloud ta na bun lagging a new side egner and astrachan ach ta me eg dinner runibug forbert shot Sevedis le memo Q cloud ta cadunish chumska de lound gur fader web-based portal runne astrahar nu dinne a mon astrachan fai treif se áirithe agus aquani áirithe a runne orthe agus an sin wint nuair atá deir leis an tionscail seo so leir me just cilt beag níos muile conaí a líonn se sin isteach leis an tionscail principle rud beag an sin chomán an na hurlaí profáile is ag cógálacha agus caiintiní mar seo beidir a hagans choráí spéisiúil amach mar bhaintear techniúil an oras tá hurlaí profáile ina crack a gcónaí idir leganach de Word agus PDF rudí difriúla, but braham officeach go háirithe níl éon trár lár nach ann agus dá mé trár lár nach ann dá mé lína tír a cumarsáide ag teacht ó na saláthráí móra donna daine atá ag séhrú in office go léithúil go méid se sin ina cuidú so mátá aon cinál córa ag aine nó sanálas nó lína díireach nó smuointí acu scrad mar beidir gofuil me se caiilinteach a rudbeag ar MS Office ach just braham gomíon é a chuimrú bailí agsúla gachéile ó an sin na cuimhní astrachan í tain tá ar an astrachan anha ó héad arahuairt dá cuimhní fecinn siad an luach atá lo an tácht atá a bhfuin lení de stárál go sláán tá se chuirnúil go láidir don an technúil go gahamíd cooltacha ceart a bheith going agus go gahí an tála sin a bheith ar fáil agla go nimín se nó go mín se trúlathe ná luchtach na aonrad mar sin so chuir míad an luach ar bhainistú na sunraí sin agus an luach eagraíochtúil atá leis. So mar a luame í tuisce tá sanálas ar le san oras de daoine agsúla. Daoine le cáilíochtaí, le creidúnathe astrachan ach beidir nach bhfuil ag gul don astrachan go léithúil mar dúirt Siobhan níl siad a bhaint leas omláin as na hurlaí astrachan agus tá tionscail seo ag cuidiú ling sin a bhuga na hurlaí astrachan a bhuga I dro na daoine sin agus dhéana níos fusa ar na daoine sin go luath. Okay, so leir me go gasta ar an tionscail principle é hain. So brasás de cóibrú leis an una de dapta gcónaí bram hengil si de denna obairintach agus maidir leis an tionscail seo bhí gacrad leag amach le chéimeanna na soléire bhí na trádacha ó Jane, ó Helen, ó Sheila agus párig in iconic agus an tionscail principle bhí siad bras soléir a gcónaí agus bhí siad a takeúling ar gach bailach ar gach céim den phróiseas. So dús am a churmid ar cód TMX ar fáil agus dúsáid si sin don stáisiún a cheacha de náisiúnta sin. Now héh chlárú den tionscail cuidigh si ling ní a se dúchláánach an sin ó héh an tionscail seo a ghlaine lenar manistíocht tínseach cuidiú atá ling ar an gléach seo. 10 gig an una de dacht sin go raibh míid slán sáilt ó thaobh GDPR go raibh míid sásta nach raibh an tálas aber scuilte sna réimse pobl go raibh an ábhar ígur canál go raibh míid ábalta scanna dhéana sin, so bhí winning umláán going as an tálas a churmid ar fáil don tionscadal seo. An sin ó thaobh na test sets agus an masúnú ar na habertí. Bhí mé really bug scantry ar dús ach ní raibh an nualadh oibre róghrom ar chorbe chuí bert trí na habertí agus rinne siad an masúnú agus mar adorú bhí an stuff a tháinig go rás an inal MT bhí sé bhád chun cín ar Google Translate agus nuair a scóráil muid an test set bhí sé díirithe orringe mar déir si tá sé cruthe ón nólas hain ach bhí cinál raibhaní ann masúna dhéine ar na test sets ar an raibh muidir cuairtú rud éigean a bhí níos cuiste nó ra muid déirí níos mó ar lífacht teachas luas. So chin muide déirú ar lífacht mar go gurí an inal astrachan seo leis an luas cibéir be. So nuair a rinne míid masúnú ar an cinál stuff tháinig go rás an inal framid gur se anmha hí sin stuff is fear a tháinig mise ag teachtarrás ó inal astrachan go dtí seo. Maidir leis na tráracha a rís hí na tráracha ar conas an plugin iconic a chur le MemoQ agus tradas bra solar bra éasca níor ghlach sé bhádaring. So ó thaobh an uirlis é héin a úsáid is go héidir gníomhach is máhatá muide ag úsáid an uirlis seo. So sé sin go bhfuil an plugin beag sa charnéil agus go bhfuil sé caithfh amach na cuimhní agus na multi-canal astrachan réibh fráise sealte dírí ar gach segment nó abert atá bristeach sa tionscadal ar san inal MemoQ. So just go mbíonn sé in úsáid going sa charnéil. Níl an gná nósta going réibh astrachan a dhéanamh ar ábhar mar sin. So mar chuid tá sé gceist going na hacuiní astrachan seo a úsáid níos leithne san eagraíocht le las a bhaint as an sanálas teanga sin. So mar chuide sin agus muide chur ruchtan ar fáil do astrothirí inmheanacha agus seachtracha bunaí ar tionscadal trín MemoQ Cloud. Béis sé ag eiste going an réibh astrachan sin i dhéanamh ar na cóid seo le chur ar fáil. Unas gur féidir just unas go dhéanamh sé cuasaí níos cuiste. So bé mi de chur ilúnt ar fáil donna daoine atá ag gul donna tionscadal seo, so go mé mi de tosúil maith leis an céim sin agus níl sé sin dénta going go fáil ach tá masú go mór leis an aseolalas a bhí míid bhaid sin agus tá masú go mé sé ina cuidiú donna daoine a bheits a gul don MemoQ kind of cloud version. So mar bhí na céimena a bra solar ag gach céim den fráises agus bhí an takeíocht ar fáil. Just bhhailm a rá gur go antóca le tionscadal na cuineáil seo. So si dána ó thaobh pobal a cruthú. Tá sanálathe ag saohrú agus ag gul don stuff seo ach beidir nach chuil míid ag rointain irid stuff agus ag gúpar as lámh a chéile an irid agus is féidirling. So tá mise brasáasta bheith pléile tionscail mar seo ag gach céimde agus rís tá brasáasta pléile aine i ní seo ar bhá leabhartling faoine céimní agsúla a bhain leis tionscail seo agus más féidirling aon takeíocht a thuirt nó a chur fáiltíh ná bhí a chleisce armh scarta a churing nó riomhos chur thugging. Sin mo chuid go míle mágah.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Michal. It's been really good. I think we'll all be everyone here would be very interested to hear, you know, I can tell about the project, but actually getting the experience of someone who's come on board is invaluable to us. So thanks very much for that. I'm going to pass on now. We're running a little bit behind schedule, so I hope everyone can stay with us for an extra maybe 10 minutes, because the next presentation is really interesting as well. Now it's coming from Roisin from Iconic Translation Machines, who worked and created the machine translation systems for the different early adopters on the Principal project. So I'd hope that you would be able to stay with us. Roisin will give her presentation, and then we'll have a quick Q&A session before we finish up. Okay, so Roisin, are you there?
I am, yeah.
Great.
Mícheál, tá sa fós ag roiint an scáil an sin nó bit lumsa. Perfect, yeah. Mágad.
Yeah, that's great, Roisin.
Yeah. Okay.
You can see it there. Yeah, perfect. Okay, thank you. Lanaraig.
Thanks, Jane. All right, so Dave got Kenya. So like go ship come on. So yeah, bug me rag copy and show. So it's Mr. Roisin. It's came through tide me le for an Oliac the RWS language weaver. So just lear my guard living you modulation over Tharshul Ogan O'Have technology chong in Welga. Agus an chuig beit a buntáistí mór a bheith gceist the unterbheag agus bhain beide den arnal feibli agus na bhfuil í féin má landmuidir an leferbert na technoliaachta agus na ghlachtal a húsad machine astraán na Gaeilge. So just with these for the Shrake and Tapi Hogal méid clúdói mé so yeah Luke Jane slúha agus Mícheál Dúr an sin Gromit Portach sa Transglobe Principal, so rock me trí an chuchuige agus an maolaigh sa tá agan O'Have course a hogal. Tuair me track an sin na course éagsúla a d'urbar iconic le lin an tionscadal. Le béimar le an sin na hinal Gaeilge agus na tuirí masúna a bhí acu. An sin O'Have léirgas an top your fad a thuirtíomh marialar aimú na hinal a d'ur bremer branomid ar chúpla hampla de Oscar argwyd goris. Gaeilge I gumprod le choris eile. Agus deir an sin thoráint aseolalas a former an School Principal Gadisha. So river sin School thug fui dara agus tá sé lúta orna go aniu gur Iconic Translation Machines bhí scrífa ar chlór an léniu ach tá arthú tá ar sin le déine mar sin bhálam dúr cúntas gar a thuirtíomh ar an nasca a thuirla agus an brand aniu atá agan si sin RWS language weaver. So tháinig Iconic Translation Machines agus STL machine translation le chéile faoi scá RWS group chun RWS language weaver a chorú or don machine astraán den céad scó. Is tógur gur bé cean in na buntáistí is mó atá agan ná go bhfuil an sanolas technical agus an sanolas teangólaach a réon agan in RWS language weaver. Gá gan é atá réicnach concurs machine astraán éfachtach agus láidir a Herbert. So tám seo agus táidir fádan seo bís faoi nasca seo go thóir O'Have na deisna tá agan in is O'Have na Gaeilge. Tá bhd níos mó áis na agan agus muidir mar bháil den LSP is mó ar dain agus tá ag tnú go mór a technoliacht na Gaeilge a threisiú agus chur chun cín. So seans gan mé tagart the Iconic aniu ach dúir le míú gur language weaver a thugta ar an inis. Ach nos goim rá agus chun léirgas níos soléir a thuirtíomh ar an brosis tógáil atá agan bhálam léirt faoin gur chuige agus mó óliacht atá agan. So déanamuid course machine astraán san ceappa a thógáil the customary inionad course generalta de gachéine a thógáil agus buine an prósis tógáil a chéine le gachéan den na course sin. So leir Jane níos luha faoin gcuí ar gláán agus ar scagmid na sunraí teang na hánagus teach faoin School Principal agus is cuid lorna sin den bhó óliacht ar le atá agan. So in iad an ghlacha leis na sunraí de ná sunraí dátheanga go bhína gceist ón gléint denmuí de olbhú agus glána. So the cinál pí blina a d'urbar Iconic muid hain a dhéanaan olbhúcháin ar na sunraí teangan. So le linn an froise seo fáilte réile habertí ortha sna sunraí nach meic úsáideach den inal, agus go bhéit a chur isteach ar aimimú an inal. So mar hampla aber go raibh an Albert céine ann faoi go nó faoi chrí sna sunraí teangan. Fáilte réile hen copan an Albert céine agus rud é nach béach an inal rud be elam ón Albert céine. nó aber ghfuil Albertl ann nach bhfuil ar orthchaidán ar cisna éagsúla. So deirtar gohfuil turin ag buint le siúd agus gur féidir lo an choras maisín astraán a chur go thomláin ar stray. Mar sin fáilte réilo ón na sunraí. So tá rudí eile gur féile dhéanamh sulan dhéanamid an choras maisín astraán a Herbert. Ag bra ar an teanga atá a gceist tá riala go teangan difriúile gur féile an múna an choras maisín astraán mar bódúil réamh froiseála. So an sin dar chéim nuir tá bun choras réile dul denwood masúna inbánach ar an inal, agus nuir táid féin sásta leis ó héhann technoliacht agus na teangada, an sin is féile an rialacha eile sanúla a bhúna, má tá rudí ar le dí ag an glíontaí féin. Mar hampla mata lista termíochta acu átu gai X a bheith astra mar Y I gcónaí gan eiscocht. Is féile an rialacha den nósin rialacha iarfróiseála a bhúna an inal. So in sin ar fad tá inal réile dul, denwood an choras maisín astraán a láthir an féint, onas gur féile túús a chur leis an gcóras a úsáid. So tá rain bailí agsúla gur féile an choras maisín astraán a chur fáil ag bra ar pein móa ar an client. So dús spór agus leir míhall fao seo, is féile an choras a chur fáil ar an cloud. Agus an sin bíon an inal an sin réile dul peor bhfuil sé castal. So tá gá rá an sin. Kate cean ná tá Steve Grayson agan, so bíon cúntas agus pásagal agat an sin agus teanta seach an sin agus féidir documéidí asú amar be. No ma ar an sin is fear tána plugins sin agan. So is plugin do MemoQ a bhí úsad ag míhall agus tá plugins agan dus na captúils is mó a bhain an asteroid úsad asú ar nós MemoQ, Trados agus leid. An sin tá rá eile ar fádain is féidir linn an choras a láthir ar an láthair, so on-premise. So degan á rounding through emotion nuir an customer on board ar fád marall ar habalta agus custom sunring. So a gcóíonn sin tugan an éan atá agan takeíocht omland an customer agus an choras maisín astraán a úsad acu, má aon aib ó héamh na technoliaide, nó má aon ahra nó fiabhsa atá tastal waithú leis an gcóras is félinn é sin a dhéanamh. So sin an próses ina omlan. So bugarráid Deireach le tagart a dhéanamh dus na hinal a d'irbre iconic le linen sinscoil principal agus tas agam gur leir Jane bhui seo níos luha. Ach tógu choras maisín astraán de líon ward lachadóirí luas a crot san Ísland san Iarua agus an seo an éireann. So sa céad céim den sinscoil tógu gá in L-deg san omlan. Agus an sin faoi dhearr an dar chéim sa sinscoil a chríicnóí ag an gábhí nó mar sin tóg for idir 8 agus 5 inal ar an omlan. Agus an cuid is módí sin críicna inis. So tá lista an sin den na glachadóirí luha a bhí agan. But ag dtír isteach ar na choras maisín astraán Gaeilge a tógu le linn an sinscoil principal. So déantar gach choras a thógáil le meascán sunraí teangan ar le. Degan ná níomháin go dógtar choras tá clínt le na sunraí féin, ach buinemuid úsát as sunraí teangan eile a tar fáil agus bhfuil cead a roinnt. Má bhasammuid go mbeadh na sunraí sa bhreisin úsáid go héobh an choras maisín astraán is fearr agus is féidir a thógáil. So feice sin sin na meascán éagsúla sunraí teangan a bhain mar úsáid asú chun na choras ile a thógáil. So nuair atá líon mór sunraí teangan agat le choras maisín astraán a thógáil agus má tá na sunraí sin ar orthchaidán. Agus iríonach de réimse an choras feicta thuirthaí anmhar fad. So mar hampla an sin an chéad choras an bun choras Gaeilge a tógu ag tús an sinscoil principal, bhí sé sin buin úsáid as Deireach na sunraí ó ELRC séir. Agus feicse an sin go raibh ní hartá 900,000 péirí abertaí an sin. Agus rinne Jane troch níos lua ar an inal a thógamar le Deireach níos lua ná 600,000 péirí abertaí ceam. So feice an sin for an pí blian atá ag iconic ré le beagnach 300,000 péir abertaí. Nach ra úsáideach nach mbeadh iúnach don inal sin, so sin an cinnal olbhacána dhéanam muidna ar na sunraí in iconic. So héh masúna a dhéanamh ar na córas faisií astraán agus sagan gur leir cúpla daine eile faoi seo níos luithe. Ach an cuí is tapú le léirgus aáil ar aimimú an inal ná trí córas scórála u aibrethe úsad. So nuair aim bud na sonraí teangan an glíonn ag an tús, de an ná is sonraí dátheanga go bhína gceist, bun text mar hampla i méla agus an lag an ghilge den text sin. So sé cospóir atá ag an gcóras maisí astraán ná a bheith ar chocéim leis an legan ghilge sin. So den an budine tácar scrúdathe an teist mar le míála astrú le córas éagsúla, agus tá algorithm ann an sin gur féidir le a bheas cécho gar don astraán déine atá legan maisí astra den tácar scrúdathe sin. So algorithm amhána úsáidir go fórlahan san airnal ná scór na blue. So go bunúscoch séir atá gceist le blue ná scór cáíochta de chóir faisií astraán a dhéanaan iirecht an ceangal nó na cosúlaí idir oscar maisí astra agus astraán déine a thós, agus tutar scór idir nád agus céad de an nád an córis áit gohfuil scór níos airde níos fearr. So de an déirtar gohfuil scór níos osciún dad sách má le hir agurthirtaí ana bhéir. So mar ag mud an sin agus lu déine seo níos luúthe rinú masúnú ar chóras faisií astraán iconic I gcomprád le gá chóras maisí astraán ar lína, cinál one size fits all mar gléimearthú. So I gás gach tácar scrúdathe thóraigh córas iconic na córas eile go maith le barní súntasacha ann idir ar gcóras féin agus na cí eile. Mar hampla an sin bhí scór blue de 83 sé stoilm ag an gcóras a thug mar de rannach an astraán títhir na Oireachtas. Scór an order fád é sin agus ní a scór like bhí scór na blue de 8 agus 55 ag na córas eile. So is difriúg súntasach é sin. Níl éirs faoi ach bhfuil caiid an ar level difriúil ar fád ag buint le córas faisií astraán sanna cheappa atá curtha in éireann do client agus do réimse ar le. So dá méid níos má ama agan den bhád ar níos má samplaí hortíhann seo. Ach dúirt le taspán go tapidíh na cinála go fáib na teangólacha a thóirín argrid córas ag gcompar le córas eile. So céad sampla an sin tá bun text a méla agus an astraán tágartha in Gaeilge, so sé sin an astraán déine a formar an glínt. So feici sibh gur áirg leis an gcóras maisí astraán a d'urbraíomar dúras na Gaeilge an ábhar a astrú gceart na léon aibhna ann. Tá talt ar lór an sin rib 8 tarnéthe ach tá ábhar bus ceart agus líf agus technol. Agus níor air go róha leis an gcóras ar lína. So tá focail 8 san áitní ceart an sin agus níor astriú superior courts I gceart. Agus tá termíoch sin antáhachtach agus sin an cinál buntáist a bhainean le córas maisí astraán san ceappa. So dar hampla an sin feici sibh arís go náiríonn go háanhá lenar gcóras féin. Tá faibanna ag an géad córas ar lína leis an termíocht arís. Freisin ó hebh ord na vocal. Tá stíal na Gaeilge cinál de dhíar. Agus mar breithnín sibh ar an deire chóras ar lína an sin tá cuid is mód an ábhart ar lór go thomlan. So feictar na cinál faibanna sin go minic leis na córas ar lína. Agus just sampleháin eile go tapaí a rís tá sé rithóir go mín na córas ar lína ag strapal go mórmhór le gnéithe agsúla den froiste astraán rud a thóirín na córas faisií astraán san ceappa de cuid language weaver. So déir hir hálan sin tá tuirthaí ionsacha taspáint ag an sinscoil principal agus an obair a rinnemuid ar arbeirt na córas faisií astraán Gaeilge ar fad. Agus bhí sé an dasar fád fiú éisteach leis an méid a bhí le rá ag míálan sin faoi a haí leis an gcóras. So nuair atá sonraí ar orthchaid an agat. Fuair lán le sano le technúla agus an próisis bunathe ar an glínt agus ar réimse ortha tá deis olbhar an bun faisií astraán sa Gaeilge. So tá ní dulcan cín olbhór a dhéanamh ó thaobh technolaigh teanga na Gaeilge agus le caiid an buinte amach agan an seo nachhfuil feice hana in áíire. Tá sé léirthe agan gur féidir leis an technolaigh tá agan duling leis an Gaeilge. agus tá tuirtí iontacha fecha agan an sin. So cé go méid sé ionach na milliún ábhartí do honraí teangan a bheith agan mar luú bhfuil mantas níos luha. Táimid an dhéana na tuirtí seo a bhaint amach le milliún nó fiú níos lú ná milliún péirí ábhartí de gach córas maisín astragáin. Agus tá sé sin margheall go bhfuil na sonraí teangan ar orth chaidan, agus go ndéanamid córas a thógáil de réimsí sanúla ar le. Ní córas generalta a bhí na gceist. Tá an air sin buntáistí buint leis an maisín astragáin, ó héh costa sé geara, caiid an ordú, tá sé sábháilta agus tá sé cocoéisce é isteach sa sreabh oibre. So rénos críá mé sin cúpla rudí deasa a bhí le rá ag ghlachtarí luha an tionstal principal faoin córis maisín astragáin a d'ir brímar dómh, ach má ceistir bit aine chur ar iad nó mas fearlah is féidir teagháil dhéanamh lom ag an seola riomhfostan sin tá ar an scáilán. Ach rénos míle buchas liverpad agus bunig sultas an chuile den lá. Sin méid agam.
Okay, Gurv Mila Mahagat, Roisin. That was really clear, really interesting way to see how it all came together, I think, and I hope everybody has enjoyed it, being able to sort of see every aspect of the Principal project. But I really think that those testimonials are really nice to see and to read, and that was the general consensus that we got. And as I said, we were coming at it independently in DCU and evaluating the systems independently, and as in the majority of cases, you know, we found that the iconic translation machines were the systems were outperforming the other publicly available engines. So thanks so much for that. Does anybody have any questions at this stage? Thank you all for staying with us for the extra few minutes. I think, you know, it was really, really good to see. Thanks, Roisin, for being so patient coming in at the end as well.
If there's any, it doesn't have to be a question, just a comment or feedback from anyone on their experience of today. Did you find it useful, too technical, less technical than expected? Did you need to know more? Or just any sort of feedback. I mean, you can email us if you want to give it to us in private, but the door's open.
Yeah. Roisin, how much do you charge?
I wouldn't have that information to hand, Philip, now. It's above my level, but you can get in touch with us anyway if you want to.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so Philip, the one of the advantages of those early adopters working with the Principal project is that all of the work we did was funded by the European Commission as part of gathering the data. And now, as Iconic is integrating with SDL in Language Weaver, the pricing's being updated, and because we'll now have advantages like being able to make it available through Trados by working together with the RWS team.
Any other comments? Maybe comments in relation to what Siobhan had said earlier on? No, it's a quiet group today. Khalid, I see you have your camera on. Did you have any input to give us?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Teresa. I think this was a wonderful workshop. It's really nice to see all of you, or to hear most of you and see all these names. It's a pity that we had to run the workshop virtually instead of the usual face-to-face. I think we missed some drinks in the lovely city of Dublin, but this will be for the next workshop. I just wanted to express the thanks and gratitude of the whole ELRC consortium, to yourself, Teresa, Jane, to Michael, and the whole team behind this workshop. Some of us know what is behind the scene and all the complexity to set up such workshops. So congratulations. It was very lovely. I learned a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks to all the speakers. And I hope to see you in some other opportunities face to face. Thanks again.
Great. Thank you, Khalid. And I agree, hopefully the next time in Ireland.
Yeah,
as per
absolutely.
normal. Okay, so if there's no other feedback or questions, I'll just do a quick closing and conclusion. So I will share screen. So it'll only take a few minutes. Okay, it's just a quick summary of today. The topics we raised were the potential of language technology to transform governance, administration, commerce, and society. So that is basically this idea of public sector jumping on board with AI and language technology and how it's going to change going down the line. We know that this is going to happen for English in general, and so eventually we will see it in our daily lives anyway in English, but what we need to be aware of is if we want to see this in Irish, we currently have a lack of technological readiness for Irish in this AI era. We spoke about Ireland's position with regard to development and adoption of language technology for Irish and how much work is still left to do. And we also talked about the activities at EU level, so in terms of funding and planning and projects like the European Language Equality towards a wider development and adoption of language technology for Irish. And of course, we heard about the EU Open Data Directive, which will give us great support going forward in terms of collecting data. Sorry. Okay, so the lessons learned. Basically, the speakers of lesser spoken languages across Europe are facing a digital time bomb. So the idea is that as the world progresses, we're moving into a more digital era, and it's going to be so prevalent, if the technology is not there for a particular language, people will have to default to using it in another language, and the language becomes less used. While Ireland is a leader in AI technologies, as a country, this actually only applies to the English language. And we need better funding and planning to ensure that Irish is digitally prepared going forward. Language technology and artificial language, of course, need more data from you. And we encourage you to share your language data nationally at the NRS or SAN, which is in Irish, or at the European level. Okay, so if you have any questions on any technical or legal aspects of language data, the ELRC help desk is there. We've put information in the chat earlier on, we'll put it back in the chat now, or at the Irish NRS support. So Helen gave you those details earlier, and I'll put them on the screen at the very end. But these topics could relate to the use of the portals for uploading data and production of the system, if you want to know more about them, collection of data, processing, sharing, copyright issues, and so on. Okay, and so from my perspective, I'd like to extend a sincere gratitude to the entire team. Firstly, for the interpreters today, who performed a wonderful job. Thank you both. We also had our local technical support, so Orla and Abigail from the ADAPT Centre, and also from the ELRC support team at DFKI, who helped us. A lot of work goes on in the background because it's a European-wide framework for these workshops. So we'd like to thank the ELRC group, and then most importantly, a big thank you to Jane as a co-organizer of this workshop. So Gurmahiv Galer, Osva and you, Ling, and here are the details to contact us, and I'll leave them up on the screen for a moment. So thank you.
Gurmahiv.